wasn't born in Ghana. I was born in Newcastle upon Tyne. That's why I call myself a Geordie Ghanaian. My Ghanaian name is Adjoa Brago. So my husband's Nigerian. My married name is Oshuriade. I'm a mom. I'm also a surgeon, so I'm known as Miss Mensah. Those are all my names. I'm a consultant ophthalmic surgeon working at London, at Central Middlesex Hospital at London Northwest, where I'm the Workforce Race Equality Standard lead there. I'm also the president of the Royal College of not the Royal College of Ophthalmologists, that's a Freudian slip, the Royal Society of Medicine. I was the former chair for EDI for the Royal College of Ophthalmologists, but then I was sacked after 9 months. I'm the former clinical lead in the CRG for Northwest London for ophthalmology. I led a fantastic team of multidisciplinary staff crossing all sorts of different occupational groups. It was about 70 members of staff in my department, eye department, and I would say that the lady that's standing there in the middle, that white lady standing there in the middle, was my mentor, and what the ethos of the department that I worked and I had the privilege to lead for 6 years was that we were just literally an MDT of happy staff. So I was asked to talk about intersectionality. So Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, she's the professor who actually coined the term intersectionality. It's international. It's the end of International Women's Month, and as women of so-called color, different backgrounds, there are certain protected characteristics that will have an impact in our ability to progress as leaders. And what intersectionality does is it encompasses things, obviously our race, our gender is what Professor Crenshaw talked about particularly, but also class, religion, disability, and also physical appearance. So we're not a monolith. We do come together and we do present ourselves with different characteristics and traits. I would say that leadership, particularly for women that I describe who come from the global majority, so anybody who identifies as Black, Asian, minority ethnic, indigenous, mixed, we actually represent the global majority. That's 80% of the global population. I never use the term ethnic minority because minority is a reductive term, and I also don't BAME anybody. I always say BAME over, and I've either identify as of Ghanaian heritage or Black African. So different aggregated and disaggregated terms. But for women from the global majority, our ability to get from point A to point B does have a lot of overlapping barriers that are structural. A lot of them are systemic, and I recognize that they are not due to any personal shortcomings. So all the traditional leadership models that people describe and they talk about, I don't necessarily identify with them myself, because I've had to navigate the system to sort of overcome those blockages and those barriers. I particularly loathe the term imposter syndrome. I reject it. It is a myth, because what that does is it puts all the emphasis on the individual as being less than. And I know that we are not less than, and it's the structures and the systems that are against us. There is actually nothing wrong with us. So I don't believe in the term imposter syndrome, and I would really like to pass on that knowledge to the next generation, to say to them, look, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You can achieve what you want to achieve. It may not go in the traditional path, it will go different ways. So I'm using terms more about embracing becoming. I don't talk about inclusion, because inclusion assumes a position of exclusion. It kind of makes you feel like you're on the outside, and you know what, let's include this person in. I know that when we get into certain spaces, we always want to feel as if we belong, but sometimes we can't wait to belong. So I now talk about becoming, which means it's a transformational word. It seems like a very simple word, but it's incredibly transformational. And what I mean by that is that through our trajectory, through our career of leadership, we will face I say slides and ladders rather than sticks and ladders. We might climb up, then we get knocked down. So there's this falling and this rising trajectory within in our pathway. For me, definitely. But what I've used that as is a way to sort of like sidestep and think outside the box and be quite innovative and transformational with things that I do. I think that when we are excluded, it's about reclaiming the narrative and actually using it to our advantage. And also, what's really, really important is to center ourselves and lead with authenticity, authentically, be our true selves. I can't be a parody of anything else. I can only be myself. That's the only thing I need that I can do, because I don't have to think about it very much. And so I'm just myself. I've coined this new hashtag as a call to action for all of us. If we're blocked in the space, if we can't achieve what it is what we want to achieve through the traditional methods, we have to think outside the box and start doing things by us, for us. There's much more sustainability and longevity with that. So I just want to just talk very briefly in the last minute or two, just about a few examples. I'm not going to talk about things like what most people would talk about traditionally with leadership. I really, really love to impart knowledge. So any opportunity I can to empower our communities with knowledge, I'll give a lecture with Khan, I'll do things with Diabetes Africa, anything I can to help our community, our patients that we look at, increase their knowledge, I'll be there. Kelly talked about how we first met. We first met on a big platform where I was called dangerous by the CEO for NICE, because I asked a simple question whether NICE was systemically racist to people living with sickle cell in the UK. I talk about 500 to 1. Sickle cell is a genetic condition that predominantly affects the Black African, Black Caribbean, South Asian, Middle Eastern population. It's the commonest genetic disorder in this country. Cystic fibrosis is another genetic condition, but it's not as prevalent as sickle cell. And yet, when you look at the NICE approved drug treatments, there are 500 for cystic fibrosis, which predominantly affects white people, and there is 1 or 2 at the time. Last year was 1. So I asked her the question when they were trying to decide whether this gene therapy, this new gene therapy, Exocel, would be approved by NICE. The CEO for NICE in that forum said it was too expensive, almost like, you know what, people living with sickle cell, it's not worth it, it's too expensive. There are other things that people need treatments for. But I just said, listen, that means that, are you saying that NICE is systemically racist? Because what they're doing is they're using practices, policies, and procedures against another group of people. Anyway, in the break, she said I was very dangerous. But anyway, fast forward, last month, this drug has been approved. I'd like to think that I might have given her food for thought to reflect there. So working collectively, there was a big body of people, other people involved in getting this drug, this expensive drug, approved for our patients who are living with sickle cell. I do a lot of advocacy. I'm quite bold with the advocacy I might do. It might take the form of a letter, or it might take the form of protests outside the General Medical Council against this poor doctor, Dr. Doye, who'd been targeted by the GMC for 4 years for ticking the wrong box on the form, and the GMC dropped their case against him. I love reading books about anti-racism, empowering, racial trauma, to educate myself, and I was privileged enough to be part of this YouTube series with Shereen Daniels, who wrote The Anti-Racist Organization, which is a book I recommend. I've called out racist responses and questions in this medical textbook, and together with Rachel Harlow, we rewrote the questions with an anti-racist framework. So I think I've stopped sharing. I hope I've stopped sharing. Have I stopped sharing? Thank God. The teams, yeah. So that's just a little taste of who I am and what I feel leadership should be in terms of women from the global majority. Thank you.
Thank you, Evie. I know it's never enough time. I've had the privilege of Evie didn't talk about her presidential. I don't think you went into too much detail about that, but I had the privilege of attending her inauguration, and we were all in tears because when Evie speaks, and if we had enough time, you'd be just enthralled. So thank you so much, Evie, for your contribution. I know it's just a little snippet, but I think it's really great to hear not only what you're doing in terms of your leadership, but also that personal story. It's really important. Storytelling is important. I know some of you may have questions. I'd like to invite you to hold it or put it in the chat. And then when we get into the discussion, we can raise that. Mavis, is there anything you want to come in with?
No, just to say thank you very much, Evie. Excellent story. And whilst people are thinking about the questions, I'm thinking about that authentic leadership and finding your agency and being who you are and being brave enough to take your stand. That's the thing that really struck me.
Thank you, Mavis. Okay, so with the clock ticking, I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Ruth, and I'll leave it with you to give that full introduction. So Ruth, if you're ready, I hope the sharing works and the slide deck is okay.
I hope the sharing works too. My name is Ruth Barlow. Can everyone see it? Okay, let me just talk to the slide. So my name is Ruth Barlow, and clearly I'm not an IT specialist. My background is in nursing. I'm a children's nurse with a second qualification in public health nursing, specifically school-aged, so a school nurse. What qualifies me to talk about women's wellness? Well, I am the very proud parent of 6 children, 4 of whom are now women. One of whom got engaged recently, so she's a real woman. And I have spent most of my last 50 or so years really acting as a child and young adult advocate in a variety of different formats. And so, but I also have a personal story, and I'll talk about that shortly in terms of the impact of stress, specifically on wellness. So if I go to the next slide, can you see that second slide?
If you click on number 2, maybe it might highlight.
I think, Ruth, what you need to do is stop your slideshow for yourself. Just stop your slideshow. Don't stop sharing. Just stop your slideshow, and then just click on the slide. And
that's fine. Yeah.
Because the slideshow is not working.
Can you see that now?
We can. Yeah.
Can you see this?
We can see the slide.
Yeah, we can see slide 2.
So I'd like. Perfect, thank you. So I'd like to talk really and focus on 3 different objects that we are all familiar with, or should all be familiar with as humans, but as women in particular. And I'd just like to think about the significance of that in terms of physical and emotional health and well-being. So the first one is a bag. Now, if we were together at this conference, I'd ask you to do exercise number 1, which would be to reach into your bag and pull out the most unusual object in that bag. I've done this at many conferences before, and I've had all sorts of things from a roller to a children's spoon to a train to a toothbrush, all sorts of things. And what we know is that as women, we carry bags that are too heavy for us, and we carry them on one shoulder, usually one arm if you're really bougie. And what that creates from a physical health point of view is scoliosis, it can, certainly muscle spasm and muscle tension. And we know that we carry too much in our bags. In 2022, in terms of sickness absence in the UK, musculoskeletal injuries, including back injuries, existed in 3.2 of all sickness absence reported, 3.2 in women and 2.2 in men. So we know we don't look after our musculoskeletal, so that's our back. If you think about all of what goes on in terms of your muscles and your bones, we're not very good at taking care of our backs, particularly those of us who are nurses. That's very much true. I reckon that would be a higher number if you looked at just nursing staff alone. But also, it's really symbolic of the load that we carry on behalf of others. So as women, those of us who are parents or even sisters, daughters, we carry the load symbolically too. And what that means is that we carry a lot of stress hormone, and a lot of emotional load that isn't necessary. So there's a couple of ways we can solve this problem. From a physical point of view, carry a smaller bag, because the bigger the bag, the more you put in it. If you're carrying a lot of load, carry it in 2 bags. And at the risk of looking like the bag lady, it also makes you more conscious about the things that you carry. If you've got 2 or 3 bags, again, you might not want to walk around like that, but then you'll think about what you need to put in your bag and what you need to remove. But also carry a bag in a way that's better for your posture, for your balance. So use, for example, a rucksack, or carry your bag on opposing hands. So, sometimes on your right, sometimes on your left, and be very conscious about that switch. But also in terms of the load, the emotional load that we carry on behalf of others, think about what you need to hold and what you need not to. So I'll talk to myself on this one. Be boundaried with the support that you offer to others and the time that you give, and make sure that the time that you give to others is at least equitable to the time that you use for yourself. And I'll explain what that means in a moment in terms of our next image. So moving on to the next image, that's a mirror. Again, if I had time, I would go around the room and ask, how much time do we spend in the mirror, meaning on self-care, self-love, and the building of self-esteem? And I could bet that it would vary. Many of us don't like the image that we see, both physically and emotionally, and that comes often from previous experience and what other people external to us, the views that other people have about us. So what's the solution? Well, from a physical point of view, we are always on the journey, aren't we? Particularly in the social media age that we live in, we're always on a journey to perfection. We don't really like perfection, because perfection means there's no room for improvement. Rather, we would look at excellence, because then there's always room for improvement. So one of the tips I give, particularly with young women, is when you are looking in the mirror, spend time looking at yourself, but look for the things about yourself that you like, both and internally, and concentrate on that thing deliberately and intentionally first. So if you don't like your nose, but you think your eyes are all right, when you look in the mirror, always look for your eyes before you look for the things that you think need to improve. But more than that, I suppose it's thinking about who you are and how you would like the world to see you. I was very impressed by Evie's presentation, as I knew I would be, in terms of how you want to turn up in the world. So there's lots of focus, isn't there, on the superficial and what we look like on the external. And I think that's important. But what's more important is what's on the inside that comes onto the outside, that exudes onto the outside. The way that we really learn to love ourselves is really important in terms of how well we maintain our physical and emotional health. So things like self-reflection, so keeping a journal, for example, mindfulness, so being in the moment, and feel-good hormones have a direct positive impact on stress hormones, which in some respects are inevitable in terms of who we are and how we live and how we move in this world. And there's loads of ways for feel-good hormone to be produced. I've talked about some of them in the last few minutes, but a very, very good one is laughter and dancing. So let's dance together.
Thank you, Ruth.
I think I should have stopped sharing.
Yes, you have. I hope everyone can hear me and see me. Thank you very much, Ruth. The dancing and the laughter is something that I truly believe in as the best medicine for longevity, for just general health. So thank you for saying that. I'm just going to draw your attention to something in the chat. Because we've been having some glitches on this system, I take full responsibility. I think I used I don't know what's going on with the package that I ordered. It'd be really great if you copy that link and just have it ready in case we have issues. Because although I was on during this entire session, I was also kind of kicked out and couldn't see everyone and things like that. So just in case, please make a note of that new link. So if we get cut off, we've got a backup plan. Right, please do put in your questions in the chat. And at this point, I'd like to introduce, thank you, Ruth, for your wonderful presentation. It's always good to have something. I mean, I'm not a bag lady at all, but I do carry some ridiculous things in my bag that I need to, kind of get rid of and put down. But at this point, we're going to introduce Tracey. But Mavis, do you have any contributions before we bring in Tracey?
Very briefly, just to say thank you, Ruth. That was brilliant. Certainly, I would have said laughter and dancing. I recommend that for people all the time because of the very endorphins and stuff you said. And also, when you talk about the bag, if we look at ourselves and some of the stressors for us, how we unpick those and let them go, how we release those stressors one by one is also equally important. That's what it brought to me, is all that extra baggage and how we begin to release them step by step. Thank you.
Thank you, Mavis. So Tracey, welcome. I hope your slide deck works, and over to you to introduce yourself and work through your presentation.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. Hopefully it will work. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for asking me to speak today. When I was producing this presentation, I did sort of chuckle to myself. There's some irony with this, education, the game changer for women at any age, because you'll understand why when I get through the presentation, and you get to find out a bit more about me. But basically, I'm a senior lecturer at the University of East London, and I'm the course leader for the undergraduate public health programme. Now, usually on a presentation, I would not be putting, I'm a wife, a mother, a daughter. That's not the kind of thing you put on a presentation, is it? But I really felt with the topic of today, and with it being International Women's Month, I needed to kind of really acknowledge the importance of that. I'm not just an academic. And being who I am has been instrumental in my journey, in my path to where I am today. So it's not something I'd usually put on there. But when we look at the definition of education, actually, it depends where you look as to what answer you get. So if you look in the dictionary, it's a very transactional definition. It's about you teach and someone learns. There's an exchange of knowledge. Never thought I'd have any similarity with Einstein, but here we go. He's recognised actually, yes, there is a learning of facts, but the vital thing here is it's about the training of the mind to think. Now, it's that thinking that has kind of changed my life with regards to education, and what I really try to impart in the students is it's all well and good being able to remember things, but actually let's have a discussion and let's have a debate. What does that mean? How does that make you feel? And that is what can really be a game changer. So let me just kind of explain a bit about me. Now, I was born to Irish parents. A very traditional idea of what a family should be like. So it was that the man is the breadwinner, he goes out to work, the woman is the homemaker. And yes, you might get a little job to kind of as a bit of extra income, but that was the traditional roles. And that was what I knew and felt comfortable with. So that as a young child and as a young woman, all I could think about was, I wonder who my husband's going to be. I wonder where he lives. And I want 6 children. And that was my way of thinking. Now, when I've discovered, and I'm sharing some personal information here, but I think it's relevant around education with attitudes to it and the way we speak to children and young people. I found a report from when I was 13, so teenage years, challenging behaviour, and I'm going to share it with you here. So it was July 1986. I was late for class. They recognised I had more important things to do than being there. And I used to wear rings, which were forbidden. So I was pushing boundaries and challenging boundaries, which I still do now, but not in a destructive, naughty way. It's now around equality and justice. But I felt I didn't need to get a good education because I was going to get married and have children. I didn't have those aspirations. That is how it was. And in actual fact, my path, little did I know then, 3 years later, I would meet the man that was going to be my husband. So in 1993, we got married. Lots of people said it wouldn't work because of my age. And I like to prove people wrong. And I'm still married today. And I wanted to share this because him and my parents have been instrumental in my career and my journey and changing the possibilities that I thought I had and the options I thought I had. So we jump forward to 2022. Same people in the photograph. Me, my husband, and my parents. Now, what got me from the 13-year-old in 1986, who was a rebel and was just there to see her friends, to 2022, and I graduated with a distinction in my Masters in Public Health, and I got the highest aggregated mark out of anyone ever on that course. Now, I wouldn't normally say that to people because it's not the kind of thing you say, is it? But it got me thinking about the system, the education system, and actually how the teachers at that school made me feel. I thought I was not academic.